I'm really pleased to introduce our lecturer this evening. Israel is a very fascinating country, not only because of its architecture, but also because of its culture. And today, after spending a few hours with Etan Kimmel, I can say that he is a great representative of his country, and I really appreciate his openness, his kindness, and his warmth. The year 2018 was very successful for Etan and for his office, Kimmel Eshkolot Architects. They won the RIBA International Award. They have been selected to the final of Architizer A+ Awards as well. What's more, the project has been published in the most popular architecture magazines in the world. Today, we have the opportunity to learn about all these projects and about the challenges which are beyond them. Please welcome Etan Kimmel to the stage.
So, it's a pleasure to be here, an honor. Excuse me for my English. I don't know any Polish, but my English is going to be quite basic because I'm from Israel. First, I want to ask you a question. Do you know where this villa that we designed, do you know where it is? It's where? Well, it's in Tel Aviv, yes, but it's special. It's in Katowice Conference Street. And when Wojtek Fudela contacted me for a lecture here, I said, Katowice, that sounds familiar. And I had to, of course, go to Wikipedia to understand what it was, to make sure that it was a good conference. It was an extremely good conference for Israel. It was actually in 1884, a conference that all the leaders of the Jewish world at that time, from 20 countries, came to Katowice, gathered here in a disguise of a birthday party because it was not allowed, and they established the foundations of modern Israel. So this is a nice connection, and I will show you this house just because of its connection. I will show it to you later on. Here you see Katowice Conference. So speaking about architecture, we always think as architects trying to design projects, what is the best way that could lead us to good architecture? There are so many possible ways to lead a design process. We can start from the site, from the where. We could, analyze the site very carefully, understand every hint that the site has, the connections, the context, the urban context, the physical context, the climate. We can, use this well-known saying that the project is already on site and the architect only has to reveal it. It's there. So this is one possible way. And of course, the other possible way is to understand the essence of the building, the why. Why is this building built? Who is it built for? What are the functions of this building? What are the relationship between the functions? And by understanding that, we could lead this process to our goal, to this solution, to the good architecture. But for us in the office, we discovered that one very good generator for architecture is the how. How is this building going to be built? It's the technology of this building that when we find a way to connect architecture and technology in a way that they are inseparable, that the technique, the way the building is built is part of the architecture, inseparable part of the architecture, this is when architecture happens. And if we look very briefly at the history of architecture, we see these peaks, this great achievements, and if it's a Pantheon of nearly 2,000 years ago, this amazing dome that the Romans built, which is engineering and architecture all together, or if we look at the Gothic spaces, these light very transparent spaces with the flying buttresses that allow this architecture to happen. And also, of course, nowadays we have a lot of architecture, very inspirational architecture of this Zumtor project in Vals, that is also about understanding very deeply how this stonework and water, how can they work together, how to create a love story between stone and water. And this is something that our office is very much busy in, and finding the connection between how the building is built and the architectural idea behind the building. So if I show you, and maybe I think we should have a little bit darker, dark in the hall. I want to show you the Mount Herzl Memorial as a project that it's a stone-telling project. It is a project that the stones actually tell you a story when you come into this project. And if we look at the site is at the entrance of the graveyard of the military cemetery. It's in between the city and nature. It's between noisy life of a daily city life, and this silent landscape. And it has the cemetery has this very iconic entrance, from the 50s that you enter, and this is the beginning of an axis that leads you to the cemetery. And we see here that once you cross it, you reach the cemetery. These very identical graves of soldiers. And there, on this site, we had to position this memorial. Sorry, and the site is very tiny. It's just 30 by 30 meters, and we need to have a big hole there, and we understood that we will have to dig the spaces underground, like this beautiful museum that we are in it now, and find the spaces inside the mountain, and create the possibility to have a longer circulation than just the limited size of this site. So we introduced the idea of making this circulation as a spine of the project, and we understood that we have to take people down from one side of this axis and lead them to the hole, and then when they are in the hole, they would start to climb on the ramps around this very special light bell, this vortex of stone and light, and then they end up in the graveyard when this wall of name wraps them all around. So and then at the end of the roof of it, we will reconstruct the topography of nature there. We will reconstruct it by layers of stone, and these layers of stone, we see here the renderings of the beginning of the process, and these steps will function as a place to sit and reflect and connect to the nature which is around you. And look at the views, and even relate to nearly as if a treetop is in the wind towards the trees that are around it. So the stone mountain actually is affected by the wind. And when we enter this project, the memorial, I want to talk, of course, about the second most important aspect of such a project, and that's the essence of the project. The memorial. It is a place that Israel decided to bring all the names of all the soldiers who died throughout the wars of Israel, of modern Israel, and it's about nearly 24,000 names that had to find a place here to be commemorated. And when we started thinking how can architecture create a special place, a place that would move you, a place that will give you a sense of sacredness. How can we make a sacred place that will bring you into a different dimension, not your daily life, but will disconnect you from daily life and put you in this silence, in this philosophical mood of thinking about the past and thinking about the future and dealing with the memory of all those who died. And we understood that it is an issue of light, of how to use the daylight, how to create lattice of material and light. And this is from the first moments of the process, we try to find this way to build this lattice of material and non-material that will help us to build the memorial, and how to connect to the sky, how to connect to the daylight was very important. So we started to develop the shapes and the way we deal with the daylight as if it's a material, one of the materials of the project. So we have concrete, we have stone, and we have daylight. These are the materials that we are going to build the memorial from. And when we enter through a dark passage where there's a beautiful art piece by an artist named Michal Rovner. And then we see the light at the end of this passage, this daylight, special daylight. But a very special moment in the design process, again, nearly a technical moment, but a very important moment, was that the minute that we understood that we are going to do this issue of memory, the memorial hall, we are going to do it by bricks of memory. Every brick will have a name and a date. And this brick will be the private place of the family who lost their child. And the brick will be the one that builds the wall, and the wall will build the whole. So this understanding also, of course, led us to understand, dimensions and how long should this wall be. And we decided to have a special light that lights at the day that this soldier died. So every day you come into this memorial, different lights shine in this wall, and also this technique of how to do it, how to orchestrate these 24,000 names. And you see here some close-up of the wall of names. And it's like if you take one name out, then the wall loses its stability. So it's like every stone helps the stability of us, of the community of Israel. So you see here the wall of names and the technique of all the technical parts that are behind this wall of names to help with these lights. And if I start to explain about the light bell, this vortex of light that is in the middle, that is nearly defying gravity, it was a very, very tricky piece to design, because it's totally irregular. It is ellipses that always rotate like a vortex, because we wanted the light to come in a very special way. And if I give you a very, very short lesson in Hebrew, but important one, it's that the word halal has triple meaning in Hebrew. It means space, it means also void, and it's also the name when you want to say a fallen soldier, you say halal. And this is the essence of the project, is a bit that this void is the void of the space around us, connects to the void in our hearts for the loss of all those who have died. And we see here that this light bell connects to the sky and pours light in. And the technique that we wanted to find it took quite a while to figure out, Of course, nowadays with all the computers, the parametric design, we established a system where we have a brick that is generic. It's always 30 by 40 by 10 centimeters. But every brick, though generic, is singular in the way it's CNC'd, where the bolts and holes are, and it's marked. So when the brick comes to the site, the person only has to put it. There is only one place that he could put it. It's like a Lego. So he doesn't need plans. It's just, once the bricks came on site, it was very, very quick and very, very precise. So, and this precision is a very special phenomena, because it looks nearly like a nature phenomena more than mankind structure. So when we analyzed this and we did some mock-ups and understood exactly how we're going to build these bricks and how we're going to connect them and how we're going to fulfill all the demands of the engineers, we also had to find a way to calculate engineering-wise all this structure. Was very, very difficult, because structural engineers in Israel couldn't really cope with this irregular form and that has no second structure to it. It's just the bricks take all the load. So finally, what we found is that the army, they have these engineers that on a daily life they design tanks and war machines, but they have this knowledge and this expertise, and they could help us with this, with calculating it, and that's how we managed to build this form. And you see it when you walk around it, and the ramps are all around it, and the way the section is, where you have the mountain around it, and you have this light bill, this vortex in the middle, in these sections. And what we did also is we used the computers to create the molds for the floors, to create in the CNC these very, very soft shapes, because we wanted to have the building to feel soft, to be around you, surround you in a soft way. So all these curves and lines could only be done by computerized molds, and to reach these kind of very, very smooth lines of concrete. And speaking about sustainability, I know that we architects always love to draw when we send competitions, of course, these blue arrows and red arrows that they describe the air, but this project is really a proof that it actually works. It's really cooler in the summer and warmer in the winter because of this effect that it's underground, very deep underground, and the hot air can go only upwards. So I show you a bit of how this space feels, and how it has to bring you into a certain state of mind, of a sacred place, of a place of memory. And if I show you the process a little bit, it's in this movie. Sorry. Why is this movie not working? Can you help me there? Right. So what we see here is actually the process where we started off with the renderings of this memorial, and how we enter the memorial with this ramp leading us down to this passage where this artwork is. And we see how this topography of stone is being built layer by layer, and becoming this mountain of stone, and the way the steps lead you down to the space of the memorial itself. Here we see the passage, and how the builders built this wall of names, and every name has this specific brick and a light next to it that lights. and how they cast all these ramps and all the floors, and the light bell itself, and with its beautiful daylight coming in the models, and then all the design process until it actually came to site, and they only had to screw the bricks that came and put them into the position. And once they, it wasn't so fast as in the movie, but it was very fast to see this shape become, and very, very fascinating. And this is how this looks today with this actually the material of daylight as a key player in the project. So this was the Mount Herzl memorial that I wanted to show you, and I want to show you now to stay in Jerusalem. I will take you later to other places in Israel, other climates also, but it's a museum we did some nearly 20 years ago, and it's a museum of archaeology, and it's in the old city. It's inside the old city, the walls of the old city, and it's for us nearly urban renewal. It's an urban renewal with a gap of nearly 1,600 years in between. It was, at the time, it was, there are remains of a 7th century palace, Umayyad palace, there that we see here, and there were hints of how the Herodian street was still there, and you could feel the city, how it was in the 7th century. And what we did is actually we caught a corner of such a palace. Oops, what's going on? Sorry, let me go back a little bit. So we had these remains of the walls, and we had to think of how to build this project. And what we decided to do is put everything again underground, and where the floor, the ceiling of the project is actually the floor of the ancient palace, but most of the spaces are underground except for one piece that is totally transparent and is 4 meters above ground. And we want to have the building not as a building, not to feel that it's a building, it has doors, and so we try to have this cave-like entrance where you find the door only after you enter this underground space. And when we do have something above ground, it has to be completely transparent and respect the archaeology. And here we see how the building respects this street leading to it's the Mount Temple. It's a Wailing Wall. It's a place mostly sacred for the Jewish religion, but also for the Muslim and the Christians. It's a very, very special place in the old city. And you see that once the building is above ground, it's very, very transparent, very crisp in the way it's detailed. And again, we did something that had to do with technology there. We have this oculus of glass that is the only landmark of this building, and it's the only way that, or the last minute that we see the vistas to the outside before we go into the dark spaces of the museum itself. And once we have to introduce circulation, so we did a whole set of ramps that lead you down. They float between the old walls. You see them here leading the public down to -8 meters from where they entered. And how to, again, do old and new, and how to make a celebration out of it, a sort of a love story between the very new and the very old. And if we do an opening in the old walls, we take it and we don't disguise it as a opening that was there all the time. We actually saw this thick wall was a new opening, and all the technology is inside this new opening. And if we have Again, this transparency around it, I've showed you that. And this transparency, if I may say just a few words about it, it was quite a let's say, a challenge at the time to have a huge glass that is only supported by two spiders and the bottom part of it, and the rest of the 4 meters are completely without spiders, and how to create the roof that it doesn't move even 1 millimeter, so this glass will not break. And it was important for us, and again to show you how transparent this building is towards the vistas around it and towards the old walls of the city that this building is next to it. So this is what was important for me to explain about transparency in the Davidson Center and Davidson Museum. And now, if I take you to a area that is nearly the desert in Israel, it's on the verge of the desert, 200 millimeters of water a year, and the city is called Beersheba. It's a young city with a lot of universities. And what we designed there is a rehabilitation center. And the rehabilitation center, talking about site and context, it was just in the middle of nowhere, just in the suburbs of the city, nothing to relate to in let's say, the vicinity of the project, except for a beautiful art piece that I understood that you had an exhibition here last year of this work of Danny Caravan, who did a beautiful work about 500 meters from where we designed this building. And this was a little bit of a context for us to relate to the way he used shapes and concrete in the desert. And this no man's land brought us to think about the desert and about this endless desert, but with stones, and sometimes it becomes dramatic. You have sometimes these cliffs, and we thought we might take the building and give it a sort of a shape of these stones of the desert, and create rocks, and these rocks will take the functions of the physiotherapy, the treatment rooms, or the sports hall, or the classes, and these rocks will gather together, and they become the functions. And in between these functions, we will have the inner spaces that are used for public spaces, for circulation, for things like that. And this in-between space becomes a very, very light space with very special quality, because it's between the rocks. It nearly looks like a gorge between rocks in the desert. And the components of the building are the ground, the topographies of the ground with the ramps, the rocks themselves, and a very, very light roof on top of it. And this is the assemblage of these rocks and the roof. And by designing these rocks very carefully, penetrating them with little openings because of the strong sun, and to understand exactly the vistas and if it's north or south, it's very, very crucial in this climate. We nearly reached, if I spread the elevations of the rocks, it looks like it's something written here in a strange language that I'm not sure I can read. But we did this drawing because we wanted the building to be in exposed concrete. So we had to know exactly the amount of elevations that this building has, and the client wanted the building to be in stone. And what we architects, we all love exposed concrete, and it's so powerful and so fitting to I think to the desert landscape around us. So luckily we convinced the client that it's cheaper to do it in concrete than in stone. So they agreed to go with us with this exposed concrete. And exposed concrete, as you know, is a tricky thing. We could not. You cannot make mistakes. You have to very well. It's a one take, like film noir. You cannot edit it afterwards or cut or glue parts together. So this one take, but that also gives the power of such a project. It creates a certain integrity to a project that is, you cannot reach it when you clad a project or you give it a sort of address after you've built it. So we really loved this materiality of the concrete, and also the way it's the deformation of the concrete playing with the sun. And you see here the model that we did was has to move in a minute. You see the gorge between these rocks, this deep, cool area that is in between, that is very, very, you search for such places in the desert, and you see the topographies of the circulation, where we have to remember that in the Rehabilitation Center, a lot of the users are handicapped more than in normal society, so it has to be very, very carefully designed for these special needs of these people. And you see here the way the project is built in actually the rocks. You identify the rocks with number 8 as the sports hall, etc., etc. All these functions that are in the rocks, and the in-between spaces that are sort of finding their way between the rocks. And here we see these special needs of these people, and how to make this building extremely accessible. Not only accessible because the law makes us make buildings accessible, but really understand how these people feel, how to make them understand the building, how to do the circulation of all the building, of everybody in ramps, so they don't have to go in a different way than other people, or how to create these ramps and how to bring them into the swimming pool, that they could slide, or that they have views to the outside, even though their level of height is 1.20 meters. And you see here this swimming pool with this accessible ramp to the water, and how you enter the building, and immediately you understand what's all around you, where you want to go. It's very, very easy to orient inside the building, and how we pour in daylight in a very, very protected way to bring in light, but not the harsh sun of the desert, but in a soft manner. And when we do this, windows, they are deep inside the wall, that the glass is protected by the building itself, and how to cool the building by the water of the swimming pool, and to protect from the sun when it's summer, and to bring the sun in when it's winter, because again the climate the change of climate in desert is extreme. So you have at night it's very, very cold, and at day it becomes hot. So let's say the task of architecture becomes very, very important when you build in such extreme climate changing temperatures. So this is this rehabilitation center with some images that I want to show you, just of how it feels, and the way this light roof that connects all the rocks together, and these inner patios that the building hugs and protects to create outside spaces that are also usable, because again I remind you that the building is in the middle of nowhere, so it's not nice to walk outside of the building. But if the building creates exterior spaces that are protected by the building, it makes it a quality and a place to be, and you know, the play of water and the sun and the light, and these rocks that are inside and in between spaces, and these patios, and I think this is it. And I wonder if we want to do another project before the break, or so I'll do one more project, and then I think we earned our coffee. No, so this is a project we are building in the Tel Aviv University. It's a project. It's the computer science building. And because it's a computer science building, we thought that we want to make it nearly virtual. We want to have this cloud effect to the building. And we, this in our mind, we made this competition, we made these drawings, and the clients, they chose us. They said, it's wonderful, but are you sure you can build it? And we said, of course, it's no problem. It's very easy to build, but we didn't have a clue how to build it. We had to go and understand how to create an envelope that could be three-dimensional from glass pixels, and still how can we control it? So we had this idea of having this floating form in the space of the university, where it's everything around it is very rigid. There's a Mario Botta building next to it, but it's a modernistic buildings of the 50s and 60s, and our building is sort of a bit finding its way in between. And we show that we are going to take this envelope that takes all the functions inside and analyze them and create by parametric design, divide it into pixels and give every pixel a certain transparency or reflectiveness, that the glass changes gradiently between the dots of this elevation, and the drawings are beautiful, but still we had to figure out how to do it. And this is already a later version of the envelope, because finally we realized that it's not so complicated to create a system that can be three-dimensional, can be made out of pixels, and we could control it in space. And we could actually take this very simple system and give every pixel its distance from a certain plane, and by that we could create anything we want. We could have this very three-dimensional elevation, and we could take the glass and design it, and that it has different types of transparency and of reflectiveness, as I said. And when I look at the building, we take these functions and we wrap them with these glass pixels, so we could be very, very free in the way we design the building, because the envelope can take the difference between a floor and a floor. So if this floor needs more space, it could have more space. If this floor needs less space, the envelope could solve it. And this is how we developed this building, and it's now under construction. It's quite a I mean, one can see that it's going to be a very, very kind of special building to enjoy. I mean, we have also very nice inner spaces, but the most important aspect of the building is this very new system of the facade that is again made from these aluminum pixels that are receiving different types of glass, and here we see the building at certain stages of it, and you could see already the way the building is being cladded, and you see on the right you see a window that opens parallel to the facade on motors, so you could open it as much as you want, but it's still part of the elevation. And you see now already a later stage of the building where the windows will come shortly, and then the building will start to behave as a cloud, as a sort of a virtual building. Also at night, it will be very, very special. So this is what I wanted to show you before the coffee, and the rest will come afterward. I hope everybody enjoyed the coffee break. And for me, it is was a good position to stop the lecture, and also this small competition also connects to what I want to develop in this part of the lecture, of the talk. It is the vast field of architecture that is from urban planning all the way to the very small projects and interiors, and all of it is architecture. And we in the office, we enjoy dealing with all these scales. And not only we enjoy, we feel that it has a special benefit, because we feel that when we do an urban plan, we understand layers and information that afterwards we could use in our architecture. And when we do a small scale project, when we really work on the detail and the material, then we can bring it also to architecture. So this actually, the way that it's inefficient, because we are not an office that has a systematic housing projects all the time. We always go from the very, very big project like the one I'm going to show you now, the urban scale project, all the way to very small project, and this play between the scales is the essence of architecture for us, and not only it keeps us awake because we never do the same thing, but we feel that we bring knowledge and understanding from one scale to the other. So I would want to show you now a real intensive vertical city that we do in Tel Aviv. It's a project that it's in the center of Tel Aviv, as you have here these coal mines in the center of the city. We have a very big army base in the center of Tel Aviv that is using a very, very valuable land. And alas, it's not because peace is coming, it's just because the land is so valuable that the army steps out of the city and gives this land back to the city, and that is a very special opportunity for the city of Tel Aviv, and it was a competition done by the city of Tel Aviv of how to deal with this project that is really in the center of the center of all this 3 million metropole city, I mean bigger than Tel Aviv itself. So if you see, it's there on this very, very built area, and it's on the highway that divides the city north to south, and on the way that divides west to east, and now it's scattered buildings of an army base, small buildings from various times, and the city asks itself, how can we make this a very dominant, vibrant city center? And it's already very, very intensive all around it. There are towers all around it, and what we suggested here in the competition that we won is to really take it into an extreme of a vertical city that not only it rises to 80 floors and 100 floors, but also it creates a lot of public spaces in other levels. It's a research that is done in 10 cities. There's in Singapore a sort of a project in this way of thinking, and we actually did this project in very multiple use project that, as you see here, is separated into The yellow is office spaces, the green is hotels, and the blue is housing projects, and all the bottom part is affordable housing and commercial. So what we try to do is create a few levels of public spaces. So we have the level which is do I have a light? Yeah, I have a light. So we have the level that is on the podium, which is the level of, let's say, the neighborhood, where you have the kindergartens, you have sports facilities, etc. That's here. And then you have on the 40th floor, you have a connecting floor, which the hotel, which is here, takes care of all these spaces. These are the conference spaces, the gyms, the swimming pools, the restaurants, etc., etc. And it's a sort of a hub inside this assemblage of towers. Sorry, I'm going backwards. Sorry. And on top of it, we have the the housing that will pay for all this project, because housing there in Tel Aviv in general is a very, very expensive and good business to build. So we have this floor here that connects. We have the floor here that is let's say the neighborhood facilities. We have the affordable houses and all the office spaces on top of it. So we see here this idea of this level of the neighborhood with its kindergartens and open spaces. We see here how it connects to the city life. And I jumped to another project. So the architecture that I want to show you now is a museum for natural history. It's in the Tel Aviv University. It's a building that we just finished about half a year ago. And the university has a very, very special big collection of nature, insects and fish and all kinds of zoological pieces from the area of Israel, and this collection is a research building, so they have to research this collection. But the university decided to make also a museum out of it. So it's a building that is a sort of a hybrid between a museum and a research building. We have researchers that come there every day, and that's their working space. And you have the public that comes and looks at the collections, and for them it's a museum. So what we see here is the site was a parking lot, an open parking lot, and we have the botanical gardens here, and the university is here. And we wanted to bring the botanical gardens to the street, that they actually are present on the street itself and not behind the parking lot. So we sort of brought the green into the university and had the building float above it, nearly not touching it, and becoming the grand entry to the gardens. So the building is floating above. We have the collections, the box of collections that have to be without windows, and they have to be very well protected climatically in all conditions. And we have the researchers part that connect into it, and we have the public that walks all around the building. And these were the very, very first sketches and the competition renderings of this building, where you see the collections, you see the way this building actually invites you to walk to the gardens. And you see the land that it touches is very scarce. It's mostly above ground, and you see here all the elements around it: the entrance hall, the topographies that are protected, and there are gardening spaces. and the building itself in its stage of rendering, where the idea is to have the people move in the building by ramps, letting them climb slowly up the let's say the exhibition spaces, all the way to the collections, where they look as if they look at the collections themselves. It's like a half a peep that they get, sort of a peep show into the works of the scientists themselves. And the scientists, they enter the collections by bridges that bring them to this different levels of the collections themselves. And we see here how these two parts, they play together, and the collections are here, and the public walks and sort of has a glance into the collections. And here it's this moment where, it's this moment where they enter the collections and they see inside the collections. And you see the stripe of laboratories on the east that are entering these collections by bridges, and this section of the two parts of the building, and a longitude section that tells again the idea of the collections, the laboratories, and the visitors. All these work together in one building. And we see these parts of the building where the collections and the laboratories and also some classes. If I show you the components of the building, it's you see these parts that are connected together, the circulation above the general public spaces, the collection boxes, and the laboratories that are surrounding the collections, and maybe in the future some more spaces. And you see here this way that the circulation, the public goes through a certain route where the scientists, they have a different core, and they walk in the building in a different way, and they both, it's like also in a court, if you design a court, also the judges go differently than the public, so it's like dividing these circulation and joining them together where we want. And the actual building, where you see this box that we did, it's made out of material called prodema. It's industrial wood that actually doesn't change in the sun. It's cladded as a HPL kind of cladding, and it's very very clear to see the parts of the building and how they connect to one another in a certain way, and the way there are the details of the box that is floating above the glass volume. And this is the east facade of the laboratories looking to the botanical gardens. And you see here again the idea of the ramps that lead you, and then you walk on this ramp upwards. So it's actually a building with no galleries. It's a museum with no galleries. It's a museum that all its experience, you experience it only by walking through these ramps and seeing all the exhibitions that are all around you. And here you see the entrance to the botanical gardens, like a big an entrance to the green that is behind. And again, this very pleasant space, also shaded and has a nice breeze in it because of the way it's open to the west, and the ramps that are floating above it, which is also again protecting the exterior spaces. And here you see already inside, you see the ramps coming up for the public, with the exhibition starting to be all around you, and you walk through these exhibitions in a linear way, all the way up to the collections themselves. You see here the situation of the box, of the volume of the laboratories, and of the public that is climbing, and eventually they will cross this bridge and go into the collections themselves. And that is the most exciting moment of the visit, where you could see the scientists work there inside. And these bridges that connect, and the very nice daylight that comes in between the collections and the laboratories, and the scientists, they cross these bridges, and sorry. And again, these components and this entrance to the building and to the gardens, and this whale that is floating in between the two parts of the building. There's a skeleton of a whale, and these vistas that you have, inviting you to go inside, to explore these spaces, and every ramp is again an opportunity for an exhibition for the visitors. And yet another project that is very small, very not heroic, not a big, not a memorial, not a museum, just a small community center in a small city in Israel. But what is nice about it, that it manages to create its own surrounding, its own. It's a little city by itself. It has buildings that create a small piazza in the middle, and so the parents, they come and they spend time in the piazza, and they see the kids in the activity rooms. And there is it's just in a suburb of a small city, and the idea is to have a building split into two buildings. One is a library, and one is the community center, and in between is the plaza, and you can walk on the roofs, and you can cross from one building to the other. So you see here, on the right hand, you see the library with climbing to its roof, and on the left hand you see the community center, where its louvers protect from the sun and are in an angle that gives you views to the outside without letting the sun come in. Only when it's complete north, when it's exactly north, you see the glass elevation that is transparent, and you see the bridge connecting between the buildings. So this whole assemblage becomes a sort of a playground in itself, that kids could walk from one side to the other. And the building also invites to walk through it and stay in this plaza. And there are a lot of entrances to this to the buildings, and the notion of this walk on the roof and down to the other stairs going down, and these exterior spaces that become part of the project, and the Israel climate is quite often nice enough to spend time outside, and so the exterior spaces become as important as interior spaces. And you see here how this is organized, this building, and the interior spaces that lead you through the corridors with these vistas outside through these louvers. And this children's library with its spaces and its colors, and the way this building protects this exterior plaza that is inviting you. And now I go into a small-scale project, but to show you a bit of this. I would say nearly the interior design is a project that we did for a Startup Nation. It's a foundation that tries to create connections between the startup world of Israel and the world. So it's a it's a place that has a few floors, and the floors are organized in a way that some floors are for connections to the world, some floors are real office spaces, and some are for the local ecosystem of the people that work in Tel Aviv. And let me see if it's here. You see these parts of the building where you have these lower part that are for the local ecosystem. You have the yellow, which is the office spaces, and you have the engagements that are global for the world. And you see here the spaces that we designed inside. Where this is an office space where everything is transparent, and this is a floor for delegations and engagements. And I will show you, I hope, also a three-dimensional model in a minute, and staircases connecting from one floor to the other, which is, again, just to enjoy the details of how to make a celebration out of a staircase. And connecting it, if I go backwards, connecting it to what I said to you before, that scales of work are affecting one another. It's you see this pixel wall is actually it's again, yeah, it's here. This pixel wall is actually a model that we did that has connection to this building that I showed you before, this science, this computer science building. So this is to show you a little bit of our interior work that is part of the office, is part of how we want to crystallize the way we deal with details, we deal with materials. We want to be masters of this scale, and it will help us in the architecture. It will even help us in our urban plans. And you see here on the ground floor a restaurant that is open to the public that we did. It is also in the same language and the same spirit as the building itself, with its details, and the stairs going to a sort of a lounge which is above. And as I promised you, I would end this lecture with the Katowice conference house, which I started with, except for being in a very important street, the Katowice Conference Street. It's a nice urban villa. And this villa is in a way playful with the Bauhaus language that is all around us in Tel Aviv. Tel Aviv is very much a city of Bauhaus. There is a big area that is really, I would say 80% of the buildings are preserved buildings from the 30s and the 40s. It's a UNESCO, it's declared as a UNESCO heritage area. And this Bauhaus idea is put into this building with ideas of how to bring openings into the building, and also inside the details of the house itself, where you see here also a little bit the exposed concrete that we love to explore, and these beautiful openings to the outside, and you see here this living space and the staircase with the elevator inside, and these very small openings to the outside, and you see here this kind of cut of how the window is cut out and becomes the protection of the entrance door, and this is how the building is from the outside in this Katowice conference street. And I think with this I end this this talk tonight. And I really thank you very much for listening. And it was a pleasure to be here. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Etan, for telling us about all these extraordinary projects and about the work and passion you put into them. Now it's time for your questions. I will start with a standard question which we ask every architect who comes to Katowice. Today you spent a few hours in our city. You didn't have a lot of time to visit it closely, but you saw the city from the top, for example. And I would like to know, what are your impressions? What do you think about Katowice?
Well, it looks like a fusion kitchen. You have from everything. And it seems that this city is going through a kind of positive development, and this idea, this project, for example, is one fantastic example that I saw, is that you have these open spaces that are available because of the industry that stopped functioning, and this great potential is something for very interesting competitions and a very interesting future to the city. So I think it's going to be a great city in the coming years. Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, does anyone have a question to our guest? Of course, after the lecture there is an exhibition in the Sarp Gallery, so there will also be a chance to ask our guest lecturer privately about something that is interesting for you. So anyone with a question?
Maybe
Okay.
I will say one more thing, is connected also to what you asked about Katowice, is that I feel that architecture is the face of culture, and I agree with you in our former talk that it has to stay local and has to be very much connected to the place, and it's the face of culture, not because it's what you see, but it's mostly because architecture needs a community to make architecture. It's not you and me sitting in our small studio and making architecture. It's a public that has to find its resources for this project and to want architecture. It's a group of architects that have to make it, and engineers and builders. So it's a community that builds architecture, and this is why I love coming to places, because through that I can understand the culture of places. And the second thing I want to say is about heritage, is that my grandparents, or a bit further than that, are all coming from, both father and mother are coming from Krakow, which I understand is a totally different place than Katowice, but still very near, and from Poland. So I feel that in aspects of heritage we share a sort of common heritage.
It's true, and here in our region people are very closely connected with the history and the tradition. Okay, last chance, anyone? Any question?
Okay, I'm very glad to hear your lecture, and I have a question about the technology in architecture. You have someone who know about that, something in your office, or you rent some know-how from outside? Because it's very connecting in this architecture. So yeah, that's the question.
So the answer is the trick is that we both, my wife and myself, we teach in the universities of Israel, in Tel Aviv and in Haifa, and therefore we know all the most talented young architects, and they come to our office and they could work on Grasshopper and on all these very advanced systems of parametric design. And what is most important for me, and maybe this is the answer to your question, is that we love to do everything in-house. We don't like, we feel that this is the only way we could go back and forth and search and analyze and try, because otherwise, even if the renderings, they go out to a professional renderer, then it's not ours anymore, and we cannot, create a process out of it, which is part of the design process. So we try to do everything in-house.
What about colorful concrete? Because as I've seen in your project, mainly it's a gray. What do you think about color, white or different one? This is, of course, according white cement. That's why I'm asking.
What I think the most strongest project that we did in exposed concrete is the Rehabilitation Center in the Desert City that I showed you. And what we tried to reach there is a combination. So we mixed white cement and gray cement, and I think 50-50, to create this gray whitish look to it. And it's, to my understanding, white cement only is what engineers say as a little less structural qualities. That's how it is in Israel. So we try to mix both. But I know beautiful projects in the world that are done only with white concrete, and I admire them.
Okay, thank you for your lecture. I wanted to ask you about the buildings, because they look...
Sorry?
Sorry?
Say it again.
They look lovely, your buildings. Yeah, they're beautiful. But I think they cost very much. So what do you say to the investors to sell the building to them, to say that it's not that expensive, yeah? Mm-hmm. To make them build it, yeah?
It's a good question, because I have to admit that architecture needs a decent budget to build it, and it's always a struggle. And the budget is always limited. Definitely in these public projects where it's public resources. So it's how to spend the money in the right way. So we have always a target and a price and a budget to use, and we could find the right balance between what we find important and what we find less important. So we could decide that the office spaces inside will be quite minimal, and the public spaces will be more. More investment will be there. We could, but what we normally do again is that we convince, and then we have to also deliver that the architecture that we suggest is not more expensive than any other building. So the checkpoint building that you saw with these glass pixels is in the same budget as other buildings in the university that are built parallel to us. So we cannot spend money where we don't have it, and the Israeli market is very sort of. It's not a country that pumps oil from the ground and has this immense sources of money. So it is always an issue. A public building in Israel costs about I would say 2,000 euros per square meter. That's also the buildings that you saw here. That is in the building industry in Israel. And the only project I showed you that is very expensive, but it's not expensive because of architecture, is the Startup Nation, which was given by a very rich American foundation. And the joke about me that they did a joke about me is that even in a project that has unlimited budget, I managed to overcome that budget. So but that is expensive because, you know, we could choose Mies van der Rohe chairs, the real ones, and we could choose any material and furniture that we wanted. So, and there you could go really wild with budgets. But when it's about architecture, I think there's a lot of responsibility to not to waste any money, unnecessary money, and I know that what you refer to is this whole let's say you're actually asking, if I understand correctly, are these iconic buildings, are they moral, or I mean, is that a moral way to spend money? So first of all, I say it's iconic buildings, if they are done correctly, then it shouldn't be more expensive than a regular building. And the second answer is I connect it to the culture, or to what I try to say about culture, that this is our culture. So, you know, making a building special makes all of us special. It's a sort of, I think, important. If you need to spend money as a public, it's an important thing to insist on good quality architecture.
Okay, thank you very much. So once again, many thanks for making time to come to Katowice. We have a little gift for you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you, everybody. It was a pleasure.